So you kind of segued into it, right? So this matchup in week 3, even though that the 49ers ended up losing that game, these are two very different teams from week 3, right? So let's talk a little bit about what are those differences. And let's start right there with the matchup between Alex Mack and Kenny Clark, like you talked about. Alex Mack is a much different Alex Mack than he was at the beginning of the season. And this rushing attack is a much different rushing attack with, Mitchell and now Debo thrown in there. So what are some of the biggest differences that you see, Jack, between these two teams from the week 3 versions of them?
Yeah, there's a lot of changes really on both sides of the ball. Let's just start off with the defensive side. I think is where I'm trying to think through this a little bit, because on the defensive side, in the first game you had Josh Norman started out over there.
And that was like his first game back, right? He had just got signed, and then he was thrown into that game, if I'm remembering it right.
Yeah, he had just been signed, I think, after the first week of the season, because they had the injury week 1 to Jason Verrett. Diamador Lenore started week 2, and then Norman got thrown in there week 3. Right. And he made a really nice play at the goal line, gets the injury to his chest, and then he's out. Then you have Diamador Lenore out there, and then at one point Dante Johnson as well. This week it's going to be Ambry Thomas, so you've got that going for the 49ers on their side. On the offensive side, the 49ers don't have Mike McGlinchey. Instead, it's going to be Tom Compton. They'll have Elijah Mitchell in the backfield for them. So those are some of them. It's funny, and then you go through it, and no D Ford, right? Because D Ford was out there this first time around. So now without D Ford, that completely changes the 49ers defense, because now Eric Armstead isn't going back and forth between inside and outside.
Mm-hmm. Really, it seems to be working better, right?
Yeah, and no, it has, and it's not. But my thought isn't a negative on Eric Armstead at all. He's played very well inside. When I'm thinking, it's just Javon Kinlaw. This defense has been so much better without Javon Kinlaw on the field, right. And hopefully he can come back next year and give them something more than what he's given them the first 2 years of his tenure. But getting Eric Armstead inside has been a big gain for the 49ers. Having Samson Ebukam on a regular basis on the edge has been big for them. And then you also have Arden Key up inside as well. So I think those are the changes for the 49ers. If there's one that I'm missing, let me know. Oh, the other one too, and this one doesn't being talked very much about, is Juwan Jennings in place of Mohamed Sanu, because Mohamed Sanu was the number 3 receiver for the most part at this point in the season back in week 3. Now it's Juwan Jennings full time. So for a little bit younger, they're a little bit more explosive out of that number 3 spot with Juwan Jennings.
Yeah, let's focus on the defense, because I think there's a lot more changes on the offense that we'll go into. But just the defense, obviously you talked about some personnel changes, Jack, but personnel changes doesn't always mean better play. You know what I mean? So let's talk about how these personnel changes are going to be able to, or how they're playing different, better or worse. I'll let you be the judge of that, but how they're playing different from the week 3 secondary. And let's start with the secondary, and then we can move to the defensive line.
Say it again one more time for me.
So I know you talked about the personnel changes, but can we talk more about the level of play and how this secondary is playing now versus how they were playing week 3?
Oh yeah, no, they're playing much better. The defense as a whole is playing better. I think the secondary is playing better in part because the group up front is playing better. So it's a mix of all those things. Your Jaquiski Tartt missed a lot of the preseason and the training camp because of the turf toe injury, and so when they played in week 3, he was just getting his feet underneath him still at that point of the year. Now we've gone through the season and he's ramped up and he's playing good. Ambry Thomas, I think, helps them solidify things a little bit. Emmanuel Mosley, those two guys are really good on the edge. I feel it's the best combo the 49ers could put out on the field now. I feel like it's better than what they had back in week 3. Mm-hmm. And then beyond that, it's just the guys up front. That front 7 of San Francisco is dominant, or it has been dominant over the second half of the year for the most part. And it's going to be tough because one of the things you find when you're going up against Aaron Rodgers is that he just doesn't let you hit him.
Right.
Right. He gets the ball out quick and doesn't let you hit him. So you're not going to get sacks from him against him, but you just need to make him want to get the ball out of his hands quicker. And it's going to be a challenge because if they're playing off too much, he's going to be able to take advantage of it. So, and I know the focus of this show is so far of what we've talked about has mostly been Rodgers and the pass rush and the receivers. But I think we need to watch the run defense of the 49ers a lot more than people are bringing up, because that's key, because the only way that they're going to be able to get after Rodgers in the passing game is if they stop the run first and they force it really into a one-dimensional kind of attack. And if they force Rodgers to beat them, as crazy as that sounds, I think that plays to the 49ers defense benefit a little bit, and that now the pass rush can get up the field quicker and maybe get into his face a little bit more and make him, throw something there. And he doesn't do it very often. The Packers only have 13 turnovers on the season.
Right. And I think he only's thrown maybe 4 interceptions this year, 4 or 5. Like, he's really, really good at not making the mistakes himself.
Yeah, no, he's real smart about it. He's like Tom Brady. I was listening to somebody talk about it earlier today. It's one of those situations with Rodgers where he's just not going to let you hit him, and he's not going to let you. He's going to get that ball out quick, and he'll take that dump off if he needs to.
Yeah, and let's talk about that defensive line, because something that is starting to pick up is these others, right? So we have obviously Bosa, Armstead. It looks like Arden Key is a mainstay there over Givens, I think. And then the others, right? Whether it's Ebicom, I don't know how to pronounce the new guy's name that they just picked up midseason.
Charles Omenihu.
And then Willis has been playing pretty well after his suspension coming in. He's been a disruptor too. So let's talk about, we know that they could rush the passer when they get that opportunity. Who needs to step up to make sure that the run game gets stopped the way that you're talking about?
That really comes down to the guys in the middle. I think that comes up. And when you watch the way that the Packers ran the ball on the 49ers in week 3, it's really going to be on Eric Armstead and DJ Jones to really kind of start that and be the guys that don't allow them to run up inside, because there's a lot of runs up inside early on in the game from the Packers. And then they started to do a better job of getting to the edges in the second half. So it's going to start in the middle, and it's going to work its way out, is the way that I would see this working for the 49ers.
I like it. Let me get some comments in here. Silverado Kev, my brother. Yo, Sunil Jag, what's poppin', fellas? It's Shark Week, and our run D has to be much better as of late. Man, couldn't have said it better, Silverado. You and Jack are on the same page. Mr. Kim, key for the 49ers. Jimmy cannot make any mistakes and allow Green Bay to have a one-play drive for a touchdown. That is going to be huge. Luke Walsh smashed the like button with the force of a Ronnie Lott. Ooh, hit. If you're on IR Melee, press or click the like button. I love that. So, Jack, we did talk about the defense, the changes on the defense, or the differences on the defense. Let's talk about the offense. You brought up Jawan Jennings, which is obviously a huge one. We talked a little bit about Alex Mack actually playing like a grown man finally. Like, back in week 3, they were still talking about his perspiration problems. You know what I mean? So now, there's no more perspiration problems. But the two things that we didn't talk about, one, they're finally using Ayuk like he's option out there, right? Because he wasn't, he was still kind of doghouse or whatever week 3. And then Debo turned into Slash, where now he's playing wide back instead of just wide receiver, right? Which wasn't something that was being played. So how do you think those changes are going to make the 49ers offense, or give maybe the Green Bay defense some different looks that they weren't looking at in week 3? And how do you think that changes the trajectory of the game?
I don't think the 49ers offense is going to really look any different than they looked in the first week, in the first game. No reason I say that is because I went back and I did the film review yesterday on my channel of the week 3 game. And it looked very similar to what we see every week with the 49ers, the motioning of Debo and the way that the defense reacts to him and so on and so forth. I touched base on it earlier. The difference for the 49ers, one, is you're going to have Elijah Mitchell. That's great. You're going to get the ball to Debo Samuel a little bit more often. That's great too. But unless the 49ers offensive line does a better job of blocking up front, it's not going to matter. Because if you go back and you watch that game, the one thing that caused so much disruption, there was two guys really that were really good for Green Bay. Kenny Clark in the middle and their linebacker Campbell, number 59. He had a tremendous game. He had 12 tackles. You know, you watch the game early on, and the 49ers try to get the ball out to Deebo Samuel on a sweep to the right, and they do a really good job, like everybody does against the 49ers. They do a good job of setting that edge, and then, you know, typically what, you know, you see them cut back. You like to see, you know, Deebo wants to try to cut that thing back up inside, but I think it was Campbell. I'm pretty sure he does a really good job of filling the alley so that cutback lane isn't there, and then they just kind of wash him off to the sidelines, and he runs out of bounds for a gain of one. And they did that to him a couple of times in the game. There was one, you know, he ends up with 2 carries for no yards. The Kenny Clark just destroyed Alex Mack and the guys in the interior in this game. He didn't really get a whole lot of tackles, but he was the guy that was the disruptor, making them bounce, having to move around. So if they've got to win up front, Alex Mack has been playing really well as of late, and if he can win against Clark, that's going to help the offense move the ball. And I think all those things that we've seen them do will come alive. But they've got to win with Mack and Brunskill and Tomlinson up front if they're going to win this game.
I love it. I love it. Jack, you know I could spend another hour talking to you, but I know you're a busy man today, so I don't want to take up too much more of your time. But before I let you go, I'm sure you've said it on numerous platforms, or maybe you're holding it for the Press Democrat, but what is your prediction score-wise for this game on Saturday?
You know what? I've been bouncing around on how I'm going to do this because I don't know. I think what's going to happen here is if the 49ers can hold Green Bay to 24, I think they win. And that's the number. The 49ers haven't given up more than 24 points the entire second half of the season on defense. Since week 8, you know, they played their first 8 games, the last 9, 10 now, 10 games. They have not given up more than 24 points on defense. I know if you look at the numbers, there was 30 in Seattle and 26 against Minnesota, but that's because of special team scores. But the defense themselves has held teams to 24. So if the 49ers go in there and they play the way that they can, I think if they can hold them to 24, they win. And so let's say maybe 27-24, somewhere in that ballpark, if it's the 49ers winning this game. That I think that's doable for the 49ers to get to 27 with the way that they move the ball. And we talked about it earlier. The turnover thing is huge. The 49ers have, like I said, the 49ers have had 2 close losses by 3 points, and then they've had the two wins. In those 3-point losses that they've had, where they've given up points, I think it was a 3-point loss in 2018, the 2-point loss this year. The 49ers were -2 in one game and -3 in the other. In 2019, when the 49ers won both games, they were +1 in the first game and they're +3 in the championship game. So if the 49ers are negative on this, that tells you where this game's going to go. If it's 0, if it's a push, the 49ers are probably going to win there too. That's why I understand people getting upset and whatever with what happened with Garoppolo, but you got to remember, in Dallas, the other quarterback made the mistake first.
Mm-hmm.
And then that gave the cushion for Garoppolo to make his mistake. You don't want to have Garoppolo make that mistake. That's not.
Right.
I'm not dismissing the mistake, but if the other guy makes the mistake first, it's going to help the 49ers out here, and that's unlikely though because Green Bay's only turned the ball over 13 times. They're +13 on the season, so it's going to be hard.